YouTuber, how is it going? It's Multiplier here to tell you some things. These things will start now. So this video is all about something I call, or in fact someone else has called, white space. The part of a particular industry that no one's really looking, henceforth car outside, henceforth white space. It's a bit of the page, a bit of the industry that no one's really paying attention to or colouring in with their colouring pencils. In the first few years when you're trying to make your mark, whether that's just with impact or fans or even just money, if that's the side of the industry you're trying to go down, trying to earn a living in, say, the music industry, it's all about finding the white space, find the bits of the industry that no one's looking at, and that is where you stand the best chance of succeeding. Think about it. If you're competing with 1 million people compared to 20, you stand a much smaller chance of succeeding, especially if 10,000 or, 300 of those 1 million have been doing that particular task or that particular thing for 10, 15, 20 years maybe. You just don't really stand a chance of succeeding or standing out in that particular space if you've only been doing it 2 or 3 years or 4 years. Even if you're incredibly talented and you worked really hard for 2, 3 or 4 years, you just can't compete with the people that have been doing it much, much longer. Not to mention there's 1 million people doing that particular task, so supply and demand, your value is basically very, very small indeed. So what you want to do is you want to try and find the bits of the industry that not many people are looking at. So that could be because it's not very obvious, or because people just don't want to do it. I mean, take sample packs, for example. 5 years ago, I think it was 5 years ago, I first got into the world of sample packs. I could do that because not too many people wanted to make sample packs. There weren't too many budding sound designers out there. And so as a producer who'd only been doing it for 1.5 years at the time, a year, I could still get work making sample packs for the bigger sample pack labels because simply no one really wanted to do it. It was the white space in the industry at the time, whereas now it's much more difficult to get into the world of sample packs and sound design because, well, Cymatics started showing off how much money they earned, so everyone wanted to get in on that. Example 2 from personal experience. I first got into the world of tutorials about 5.5 years ago, maybe even 6 years ago, way before I probably should have done. But back then there weren't too many tutorials on YouTube, and you could literally have a video that says how to sound like Skrillex brackets noisier, and the sound didn't sound like Skrillex or noisier, but people still clicked it. Pure clickbait, but it worked because not too many people were doing it at the time. It was white space, and so it was much easier to get started than, say, now. It's all about just giving yourself the best chance possible. Don't compete with people that have been doing it 10 years longer than you, and don't compete with 200,000 people when you could compete with instead 200 people or 50 people. Simple enough concept, makes sense. Let me give you some examples. Subgenres, that would be the most obvious example. It makes a lot of sense. Think about it. It's much easier to stand out in a very niche genre where there aren't many producers and maybe the producers aren't at a very high level. It's much easier to stand out there than it is in the world of a very established genre. Look at drum and bass or dubstep or even house and techno in places. They're very established genres, and people that are the best in those particular genres have been doing it 10, 15 years, and so you just don't really stand a chance. Whereas if you pick a more niche genre, such as, jungle terror or something else obscure but also kind of trendy, it's easier to go from 0 to 5,000 followers in a small genre than a very established genre, and then it's much easier to go from 5,000 to 200,000 than it is to go from 20 to 200,000. For example, Dylan Francis. Dylan Francis got popular in the world of Moonbaton about 5 years ago, and then he leveraged that audience from Moonbaton into the world of electro house and now even full-on pop music. So he went Moonbaton, sort of got a following there in the world of Moonbaton, and then he got better and more contacts in the industry and so on, and that allowed him to grow into the world of electro house, and then he did the same thing again, leveraged the audience, leveraged the connections, and then to go, wow, even bigger in the world of just EDM and pop music. So, like a balloon. Imagine a balloon. Imagine you're inflating a balloon. Now, this would be a good example for me to get a balloon and inflate it, but I haven't got one. So imagine you're inflating a balloon going like that. It's much easier to get to the big size by doing kind of a bit and then another bit and then another bit than it is to go in one giant go. A less obvious example of white space would be PR, promotional sort of services. Not too many people are doing it in the world of EDM right now, at least compared to the overall audience of people wanting it. And so I would argue that would be a bit of white space right now. I mean, you could name probably 4 or 5 different sample pack companies, poof, off the top of your head, easy peasy lemon squeezy, but I bet you couldn't name 4 or 5 PR service companies, PR people. But you couldn't. A few do exist, but not many. If you think about the pool of people wanting PR and sort of trying to get their music heard in the world, that's a huge number of people, and yet there's only a tiny number of people actually doing PR, public relations, promotional sort of services. And so that would be a great thing to do if you could do it. So that's an example of white space that isn't obvious. By definition, it's normally quite hard to spot the white space because it's a bit of the industry that no one's really looking at, or it's a bit of the industry that no one really can be bothered to do because it feels like hard work or not that exciting. That was certainly the case with sample packs a few years ago. Another example that springs to mind is MIDI effect plugins. To me, that's a massive white space in the world of the music industry. I mean, yes, you can get a few MIDI effects for Max for Live and a few MIDI effect plugins, but they're very, very rare, and the potential power there is huge. Very, very big. So for me, that would be the big white space to look at in the plugin world, MIDI effects. And why not give you a third example of white space? Just because knowledge, power, ideas, tropical house. Now, you're probably thinking, tropical house, what are you on about? That's an established genre. No, it's not. Tropical house is an established subgenre. It's a comparatively small genre, really, but in my eyes, tropical house has the potential to be huge, really big. So big, in fact, it has the possibility, like your future basses and such, to be sort of pop music size. Think about it. Apart from Kygo, there aren't too many tropical house megastars, and yet tropical house has this ability to be a mega sound, and therefore, in my eyes, it's still white space. Not enough people are looking there. And if I was to start a sort of artist thing right now and try to blow up the world with amazingness, it would definitely be in the form of tropical house. There you have it, people, and there you have it. My name has been Multiplier. We've been looking at white space. Exciting times. Get creative. I will conclude this video with 3 things. I'll first of all do a 360-degree spin on the chair. I will then stand up, exit the room, and then big ups to the sunshine. Beautiful day, magic.